They sit quietly in the cold aisle, row after row of glossy cartons stamped with words we've been trained to trust. Organic, healthy, good for kids. Milk, the drink that's been sold as America's purest promise. But according to Elon Musk, that promise is starting to curdle. Behind the cheerful cow mascots and farm-fresh slogans lies a reality that should make every family stop and stare. Industrial feedlots where cows never touch grass, lawsuits over fake organic labels, hormones and antibiotics flowing straight into the cartons we pour every morning. And the brands selling them, the ones millions of Americans pour into their coffee and their kids' cereal every single morning, they're betting you never ask the very question Musk keeps raising. What if the milk you've trusted all your life isn't what you think it is? And the irony, these are the 6 biggest brands in the country. The ones we've tied into childhood lunches, bedtime cookies, and even those "got milk" ads that convinced us calcium alone could keep us alive forever. What's really inside the cartons millions of Americans trust every single day? And more importantly, how much longer can we keep pretending it's just milk? This is the Downturn Report, and today we're exposing the 6 milk brands Elon Musk says are quietly cashing in on your health, your family's health, and your future. Number 1. Horizon Organic. For decades, Horizon Organic hasn't just sold milk. It has sold us a story, the fairy tale of America at its purest. A carton painted in cheerful red, stamped with the USDA's sacred seal of approval, whispering reassurance that you're not just buying dairy, you're buying safety, goodness, and virtue. Parents pour it into sippy cups, believing it will build stronger bones. Grandparents stir it into their coffee, comforted by the idea they're choosing health over harm. Horizon has positioned itself not just as milk, but as the moral choice, the gold standard of organic. Ironically, that storybook carton hides a reality closer to an industrial warehouse than a sunlit pasture. Those glossy ads of cows grazing freely in green fields. For many Horizon suppliers, it's nothing but stock imagery, covering the truth of crowded feedlots where cows spend more time on concrete than on grass. Yes, USDA rules technically require 120 days of grazing and a third of a cow's diet from pasture. But technically is the loophole word, and Horizon has been accused time and again of stretching those rules to the breaking point. Parents aren't just paying for milk, they're paying extra for an illusion, and illusions don't stop at the pasture. In 2018, Horizon was dragged into court for marketing DHA-fortified milk as organic, even though the DHA additive was derived from genetically modified corn. Imagine being a mother who spent years budgeting carefully to afford organic milk, only to learn that the healthier product you put into your toddler's lunchbox was built on a technicality. That kind of betrayal doesn't just sting, it erodes the very foundation of trust that families rely on when they buy food. If organic can include GMOs by legal sleight of hand, then what does the word even mean anymore? And if lawsuits don't shake you, maybe this cruelty will. In 2023, undercover footage surfaced from a Horizon supplier showing calves left untreated, cows standing sick in filth, animals denied even basic veterinary care. Horizon cut ties with the farm as soon as the footage went public, but that's not the point. The point is that conditions like this existed in their supply chain at all. The brand that built its empire on smiling cows and healthy children had misery hiding behind its curtain. How do you explain to your child that the milk they've been told is better may have come from an animal that suffered to produce it? Even the product itself hasn't escaped scandal. In late 2024, Horizon was forced to recall nearly 20,000 cartons of shelf-stable milk because it spoiled weeks before its expiration date. Officials claimed it wasn't dangerous, just off. But for a parent sending that carton in a school lunchbox, off is more than an inconvenience. It's fear. It's doubtful. It's one more crack in a foundation of trust that was supposed to be unshakable. This is where the anger sets in, because Horizon's real commodity has never been milk. It's belief. Belief that organic means something more than a clever label. Belief that the USDA seal protects your children rather than protects corporate loopholes. Belief that paying extra buys purity. And for millions of Americans, that belief has been milked as ruthlessly as the cows themselves. Think about the ripple effect. Families scraping together grocery money so they can do right by their kids, only to realize they've been charged premium prices for industrial milk with a prettier costume. Parents of children with asthma or allergies, trusting the organic label to shield their kids from hidden chemicals, learning instead that the system is rigged with technicalities. Elderly people with fragile health, pouring Horizon into their coffee every morning because they think it's the safer choice, unaware that the brand's own track record is littered with recalls, lawsuits, and investigations. This isn't just about a company cutting corners. It's about how those corners cut straight into the lives of people who can least afford it. And what does it mean for America when even our organic system feels like a con? It means rising healthcare costs from preventable illnesses. It means more families distrust food labels entirely, left wondering if they should believe anything printed on the side of a box. It means the very institutions meant to guard our food supply, the certifiers, the courts, are seen not as protectors, but as enablers. It means that trust, once broken, doesn't easily return. There are alternatives, of course. Some families are turning back to local co-ops, paying directly to small dairies where cows actually graze in fields. Others are stepping away from cow's milk entirely, switching to oat, almond, or soy, reclaiming control in a way that corporate giants can't repackage or spin. These choices exist. They are real. They represent a way out of the trap Horizon has set. But here's the question that lingers when the carton is empty. If one of America's most celebrated organic brands can't live up to its own promise, then what does organic really mean anymore? How many more recalls, lawsuits, and exposés will it take before we admit that the red carton in the fridge isn't a symbol of purity, but a very expensive illusion? And more painfully still, how long will we keep pouring that illusion into our children's bowls of cereal, smiling as if we don't already know better? Number 2. Fairlife has always looked different from the milk you grew up with. No plain white jug, no humble paper carton. Instead, sleek plastic bottles lined up like premium health tonics, plastered with promises of ultra-filtered, high protein, less sugar, and behind it all, the golden halo of Coca-Cola's brand power. Fairlife didn't just market milk, it marketed the idea that milk itself could be reinvented, made smarter, cleaner, healthier. Parents reached for it believing it was the modern upgrade their families deserved. Athletes grabbed it thinking they were fueling their bodies with science-backed nutrition. Health-conscious shoppers saw it as the first dairy product that finally belonged in the same aisle as green juice and protein powder. But here's where the shine peels off. The bottle that promised better for you ended up hiding some of the ugliest scandals in modern dairy. Because behind the glossy label and billion-dollar marketing campaigns lay footage so brutal it stopped Americans in their tracks. In 2019, undercover investigators entered Fair Oaks Farms, one of Fairlife's flagship suppliers, and filmed a nightmare. Calves kicked, punched, thrown onto concrete like trash bags, workers beating them with bottles, dragging them by their ears, leaving them sick and untreated. It wasn't a rare mishap. It was systematic cruelty happening in the shadows of a brand sold as compassionate. Families at the time were pouring Fairlife into their kids' cereal, blissfully unaware that just miles away, animals were suffering in ways too grotesque to put into words. Coca-Cola's ads promised care, purity, and progress. The reality was violence, filth, and betrayal. And when the story broke, when the images went viral, Coca-Cola's response was predictable. Issue statements of shock, sever ties, claim ignorance. But consumers knew better. Cruelty that is organized, that normalized, doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't slip into the system by mistake. It's the byproduct of scale, of profit margins squeezed until dignity collapses. Fairlife wasn't the exception, it was the mask that cracked. The lawsuits followed fast. A massive class action accused Fairlife of selling not just milk, but lies, charging families a premium for extraordinary care for animals, while the truth rotted behind closed barn doors. That case ended in a $21 million settlement, but no settlement could pay back the trust that was lost. Parents who had spent years shelling out more money to do better for their kids realized they had been financing suffering. What stung wasn't just the abuse of animals, it was the abuse of belief. More bitterly, Fairlife's entire pitch wasn't just about animal care, it was about human health. They claimed fewer sugars, more protein, and a cleaner path forward. But filtered milk is still milk, still tied to hormones, still part of an industrial system where antibiotics are standard, still carrying the same risk for obesity, diabetes, and chronic disease that plague American families. Coke didn't invent healthier dairy, they just rebranded the same product and dressed it in fitness clothes. Picture the families at the center of this. The mother of a diabetic child, convinced Fairlife was a safer alternative. The father with heart disease believing that low sugar meant he was protecting his arteries. The high school athlete downing bottles after practice, thinking he was fueling performance. These aren't consumers chasing fads. They're ordinary Americans trying to care for themselves and their loved ones. And instead of getting better, they got sold a dream that was rotten at its core. This is where it becomes more than just a brand problem. It becomes an American problem, because if Coca-Cola, with its billions in profits and its army of marketers, can't deliver a product that matches its promises, then who can? If a company this powerful can repackage cruelty and call it progress, what does that say about the system we all buy from? Every Fairlife bottle sold wasn't just milk, it was another lesson in how easily corporations can bottle up our trust, slap on a label, and sell it back to us at twice the price. And then comes the insult piled on top of injury. In many small towns, a bottle of Fairlife costs more than a gallon of gas. Families struggling with skyrocketing medical bills and grocery costs are reaching deeper into their pockets, paying premiums for the privilege of being lied to. This isn't innovation, it's exploitation dressed up in sleek packaging. There are some ways out for this situation, choices that reclaim power from a system built on betrayal. Some families have turned to local dairies, co-ops they can actually visit, farms where cows graze on real grass instead of languishing in feedlots. Others have stepped away from cow's milk entirely, choosing oat, almond, or soy not because they're perfect, but because they aren't wrapped in corporate hypocrisy. There are exits from the trap. They exist. They're real. But here's the question that lingers when the bottle is empty. If even Coca-Cola, with its billions, its lawyers, its spotless marketing machine, cannot keep cruelty out of its supply chain and cannot deliver honesty in its labeling, then what does that say about every other product lining America's shelves? And more painfully, how many more times will we pay extra, smile at the sleek bottle, and pour illusions into our children's cups, pretending it's healthy, when deep down we already know better? Number 3, Organic Valley. Organic Valley has always sold itself as the gentle giant of dairy. Cartons stamped with pastoral sketches of cows grazing on endless pastures, slogans about farmer-owned and community-driven. The kind of language that makes you feel like you're not just buying milk, you're buying values. To the average American shopper, it's been the shield against big dairy, the upgrade you splurge on because you want to protect your kids, your parents, yourself from the chemicals and cruelty of industrial food. Buying Organic Valley has felt less like consumption and more like a quiet act of resistance. But peel back the label, and the story looks a lot less like resistance and a lot more like business as usual. Because behind the quaint drawings and folksy promises is one of the largest farmer cooperatives in America. A billion-dollar operation supplying every major supermarket shelf. And when you grow that big, the cozy picture of a dozen cows grazing in a meadow gives way to sprawling herds in industrial-scale pastures where the letter of organic law is met, but the spirit of it collapses. That's the part nobody likes to talk about. The USDA's organic standards look airtight on paper. Grazing requirements, no synthetic pesticides, no artificial hormones. But the reality is loopholes wide enough to drive a feed truck through. Cows technically graze 120 days a year, but the rest of the time they're confined. Farms may follow the rules, but the scale looks eerily close to the industrial model families thought they were escaping. The ads show small farmers with calloused hands. The reality looks a lot more like factories with better PR. The cruel twist is, the families paying extra for that carton aren't wealthy elites. They're ordinary Americans making sacrifices because they believe it matters. The mom working overtime shifts so her asthmatic kid can drink something cleaner. The dad with high blood pressure who trusts the word organic to mean a lighter load on his heart. The retired couple living on Social Security, choosing Organic Valley because they think it's a form of health insurance poured from a carton. When they learn that their dollars are flowing into the same industrial currents, the betrayal isn't abstract, it's personal, it's rage-inducing. What stings even more is that Organic Valley has spent decades branding itself as the moral compass of dairy, farmer-owned, mission-driven, the antidote to corporate greed. So when consumers realize it's not so different from the giants it claims to stand against, the loss goes beyond trust. It's the loss of faith itself. Because if even the good guys are bending the truth, who's left to believe in? The health picture makes the betrayal sharper still. Yes, Organic Valley bans synthetic hormones and pesticides, but industrial scale still breeds industrial shortcuts. Antibiotics that creep into supply chains, animals stressed to the breaking point, production systems designed for output, not care. For the family paying nearly double for a gallon, organic isn't supposed to mean slightly less bad. It's supposed to mean real safety, real integrity. When that promise cracks, it's not just milk spilling out. It's every illusion about what organic meant in the first place. While healthcare bills are drowning families, while wages stagnate and grocery totals balloon, Americans are digging deeper into their wallets to pay premiums for a story that isn't real. Organic Valley charges more because it sells the idea of purity, of rebellion against industrial food. But if the reality looks industrial anyway, then what are families paying for? But here's the question that sticks when the refrigerator door closes and the carton runs dry. If even the most trusted organic brand in America, the one that claimed to be farmer first, community-driven, morally upright, looks like big dairy wrapped in prettier paper, then what does organic even mean anymore? And maybe the sharper question is this: how many more times will American families pour their faith into a label, hand over hard-earned dollars for the promise of purity, and serve their children a story that was never true to begin with? Number 4. Dean Foods. Not every cautionary tale in American dairy comes from cruelty or chemicals. Some come from collapse. Dean Foods wasn't just another brand. It was the giant, the company that for decades controlled more milk than anyone else in the country. At its peak, Dean Foods touched nearly every kitchen table in America, quietly dominating the market while branding itself as the steady hand of dairy. To many, it seemed too big to fail, a fortress in an industry built on fragile promises. But by 2019, that fortress cracked wide open. Saddled with billions in debt, undercut by cheaper competitors, and struggling to adapt to changing consumer tastes, Dean Foods filed for bankruptcy. Overnight, the biggest player in American dairy was revealed to be hollow inside. And in that collapse lay the cruelest twist. It wasn't the executives who bore the heaviest cost. It was the farmers. Because when Dean Foods fell, it dragged thousands of small and mid-sized dairy farmers down with it. These weren't Wall Street speculators playing games with paper profits. These were families, generations deep in the soil, who suddenly found their contracts worthless and their milk unsellable. Decades of loyalty meant nothing. The company that had once promised stability turned out to be the very thing that destroyed it. And then came the merger with Dairy Farmers of America, a co-op that pitched itself as a farmer's ally, but in practice looked more like a consolidator of power. Farmers who had already been squeezed by Dean's contracts now found themselves facing an even larger entity, one that critics argue has the leverage to set prices at will. For many, it felt like being handed from one giant to another, only to discover the new giant carried the same appetite for control. This is the part of the dairy story that rarely makes headlines, because it's not as photogenic as animal abuse videos or chemical scandals, but it cuts just as deep. Families didn't just lose money, they lost land that had been in their name for generations. They lost herds they'd raised since childhood. They lost the chance to pass a way of life down to their children. And what replaced it? A market even more concentrated, even more tilted toward the top, where the farm and farmer-owned often feels more like a marketing slogan than a lived reality. For consumers, the betrayal runs quieter, but no less painful. Dean's collapse revealed that even the biggest, most familiar brands, the ones we trust because they have always been there, are fragile in ways we never see. And when they fall, the shock waves don't stop at Wall Street. They ripple all the way to your breakfast table. Prices shift, choices narrow, and the sense of stability vanishes. There's a bitter irony in all this. The company that once built its reputation on being the steady backbone of American milk ended up proving the opposite. That size is no guarantee of security, and that the very giants families think they can lean on may be the ones hollowing out the foundation beneath their feet. And here's the question Dean leaves us with. If even the biggest dairy company in America can implode and take thousands of honest farmers down with it, what does that say about the promises of stability we keep buying into every time we reach for a familiar brand? Number 5, great value. Walk into any Walmart in America, and you'll see it. Rows of milk cartons stamped with the plainest logo you can imagine. Great value. No cows dancing across rolling hills, no golden promises of family farms. Just a label that screams one thing: cheap. For millions of Americans trying to stretch a paycheck that never seems to go far enough, great value feels like salvation. Why pay $6 for organic when you can grab a gallon for half the price and call it good? But here's the ugly reality. Cheap doesn't mean harmless. Because while Walmart has built its empire on the promise of affordability, what families often don't see is the hidden tab they're really paying with their health. Investigations have shown that some batches of great value milk contain traces of antibiotics, growth hormones, even residues that exceed what experts call safe. You can save a couple dollars at the register, sure, but what's the price when those savings end up inside the bodies of your kids? That's the cruel paradox baked into America's food system. Families at the bottom are told to be grateful for cheap calories, but nobody says out loud that those same calories often come laced with risks the wealthy can afford to avoid. It's a two-tier system hiding in plain sight: organic and premium for those with money, value brands for those who don't. As if clean food is a luxury, not a right. And let's be clear, Walmart knows exactly how this works. They don't need glossy ads or heartfelt slogans. They bank on one brutal truth. When you've got 3 kids to feed and 20 bucks left in your wallet, you'll take the cheapest gallon every time. And they've perfected that cycle. Squeeze suppliers until prices drop, look the other way when corners are cut, and push the product nationwide under a label that feels safe simply because it's everywhere. But ubiquity is not the same as safety. Imagine the mom in Arkansas who grabs great value because she can't swing the organic price. She pours it into her toddler's cup, believing milk is milk. Or the grandfather in Ohio on a fixed income, choosing the cheapest jug because his pension check doesn't stretch. They're not cutting corners, they're surviving. And yet they're the ones unknowingly carrying the burden of higher hormone exposure, more antibiotic resistance, and long-term health costs that won't show up until years later, when it's too late to trace back to that gallon in the fridge. This isn't just about Walmart either. It's about the system that lets a company sell milk cheaper than bottled water and still rake in billions, while families pay with their bodies down the line. It's about a culture where saving $2 today can mean a hospital bill tomorrow, and nobody in power seems in a hurry to change that math. Sure, there are alternatives. Some families drive extra miles to buy from local co-ops. Others turn to plant-based milks, and a few swear off dairy altogether. But let's be honest, not everyone has that choice. For millions, Walmart is the only game in town, the only store within driving distance, the only prices they can realistically pay. And that's the tragedy. The very Americans who most need affordable, trustworthy nutrition are the ones being handed the riskiest deal of all. So the question lingers, sitting as cold and heavy as the jug in the fridge. When saving money at the checkout means gambling with your family's health, is it really a great value? Or just the most expensive bargain you'll ever make? Number 6, Lactaid. For millions of Americans, lactose intolerance isn't some trendy diet preference. It's real discomfort, the kind that turns a simple glass of milk into hours of cramps, bloating, and pain. And so when Lactaid hit the shelves promising real milk, no lactose, it felt like a lifeline. Finally, here was the fix. The same comfort, the same taste, without the misery. To parents whose kids cried after every bowl of cereal. To adults who thought their coffee would never taste right without milk. Lactaid looked like salvation in a carton, but scratch beneath the glossy promise, and what you find isn't a miracle. It's the same industrial milk run through an enzyme filter to make it digestible for those who can't handle lactose. The cows are the same, the feedlots are the same, the antibiotics and hormones are the same. Lactaid doesn't solve the system, it just sells you a workaround. And that's where the betrayal stings the most. What was marketed as freedom from pain is really just another way to keep people tethered to big dairy. Think about it. Families pay a premium for Lactaid, sometimes double the price of generic milk, believing they've bought into a healthier, safer alternative. But in reality, they're still pouring the same industrial product into their cups. It's not about making dairy better. It's about making sure nobody has an excuse to leave it. Can't digest lactose? No problem. Here's Lactaid, a clever patch that keeps you in the system. Your health isn't transformed, your dependence is, and the human cost is heavy. Parents who thought they'd solved their child's digestive issues now face the same hidden risks that run through all industrial milk: exposure to hormones, antibiotic residues, and the ethical toll of factory farming. The mother who finally watched her son finish a bowl of cereal without stomach pain may not realize that she's just traded one burden for another. Short-term comfort for long-term risk. And that's the tragedy. Families aren't asking for a marketing gimmick. They're asking for food they can actually trust. What's more, the existence of Lactaid exposes just how twisted the food system really is. Instead of questioning why so many Americans struggle to digest cow's milk in the first place, the industry's answer is to engineer a side product to patch over the symptoms. Don't ask if humans were ever meant to drink cow's milk at this scale. Don't ask why rates of lactose intolerance are highest among communities of color, making them pay the steepest premiums for relief. Just buy the fix, keep quiet, and stay in line. And here's where the anger really sets in. People aren't just paying more for Lactaid, they're paying more for the illusion of safety. It's a system that exploits vulnerability. Parents desperate to ease their child's suffering, adults searching for a way to enjoy the foods everyone else seems to take for granted. Instead of offering a true alternative, the industry repackages the same product, slaps a solution label on it, and cashes in. Yes, there are other paths. Plant-based milks made from oats, almonds, or soy. Smaller local dairies where transparency is more than a buzzword. But those require stepping outside the system. And that's the hardest part, because Lactaid makes it so easy to stay. It whispers, don't change, don't question. We fix the problem for you. So the real question isn't whether Lactaid works. It does, at least for digestion. The real question is, when the solution you're sold keeps you tied to the very problem you were trying to escape, is it really a solution or just the cleverest trap Big Dairy ever built? They sold us the image of purity, happy cows, smiling kids, and milk as America's most wholesome promise. But behind those cartons is a system cashing in on our health, our families, and our future. It's not just milk, it's hormones in your child's cereal, antibiotics in your morning coffee, and the quiet erosion of trust we thought was unshakable. So here's the question you can't ignore. If even the most trusted brands are quietly betraying us, how safe is anything left in your fridge? Tell me, which of these 6 brands shocked you the most? And which one are you still pouring into your glass every morning?
Thanks a lot for sticking with us to the very end. If you found this video useful, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you won't miss any daily uploads. And now go ahead and explore some of our top recommended videos popping up on your screen. Goodbye, and see you in the next one.